Appreciate that. Thank you.
It is. It is.
Oh, Councilor Shand is remote.
Good evening, everybody. Before we start, I just want to recognize somebody from our community who's passed away. If you could join me in thinking about him. Dave Murray, 86, of Hampton, formerly of Newburyport, passed away recently, peacefully in his sleep on July 8th, 2024. He was born in Newburyport. He attended Immaculate Conception School, graduated from Newburyport High School, and went on to serve 6 years in the United States Air Force. He was active in Newburyport life and politics. He was a member of this city council and served as its president in 1970. He also dedicated 11 years to the city as a housing authority commissioner in the 70s and 80s, and he held the position of civil defense director in the 80s. Relevant to one item on tonight's agenda, he chaired in 1972 the annual Yankee Homecoming celebration. David and his wife Faith loved the tradition of this annual celebration and enjoyed volunteering for its many events. He retired at the age of 80 from Aqua Laboratories in Amesbury, Massachusetts, after 24 years as director of plant operations. So he leaves children and grandchildren, and please let us remember him at this time. Thank you. If you can join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
To the meeting July 22nd, Councilor McCauley.
Here.
Councilor Preston. Here. Councilor Shand is
Here.
oh. Councilor Wright.
Here.
Councilor Zeed.
Here.
Councilor Donahue.
Here.
Councilor Granis.
Here.
Councilor Harmon.
Here.
Councilor Khan.
Present.
Councilor Lane.
Here.
Council President Cameron.
Here. Late files.
There are two. Order 593 is a grant acceptance for $7,176 to the Council on Aging for outreach programs to go to Budget and Finance. And Ordinance 176, a zoning ordinance to establish the Port Plaza Overlay District, also known as PPOD, to Planning and Development and Committee of the Whole.
Motion to waive the rules and accept the late files?
Second. Okay. We'll do a roll call on that.
Okay, roll call on the late files. Councilor McCauley?
Yes.
Councilor Preston?
Yes.
Councilor Shand?
Here.
Councilor Wright?
Yes.
Councilor Zeed?
Yes.
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Granis?
Yes.
Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Lane?
Yes.
Councilor President Cameron.
Yes. Thank you. We will turn to public comment, and if there are people remotely that wish to speak on an agenda item and they are from Newburyport, they can raise their hands and I'll recognize them. I will say Councilor Shand's remoteness is not her fault. She's a victim of airline traffic and crowd strikes, so we appreciate you being here, Councilor Shand. So first,
I'm glad that everyone got into a roll call tonight. Truly. I'm sorry.
thank you for being here. First of all is Wendy Reed.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Reed. I'm chair of the Select Board in West Newbury. Also with me is Angus Jennings, our town manager. We're aware that the intermunicipal agreement for the Middle Street and Plummer Spring Bridge is on tonight's council agenda. We wanted to take this opportunity to affirm that we're in attendance and available to answer any questions that come up during your consideration later on. I also wanted to make just a few brief comments that might help frame your discussion. The bridge was closed by Mass DOT in 2018 because of a structural failure. Its reconstruction is fairly complicated because of its age. It doesn't meet current design standards. It crosses a public water supply, traverses 2 communities, and it's heavily used for recreation. If any of you have been down there on the weekends, there's cyclists and fisher people and walkers. As a result of substantial effort by staff and leadership in both of our communities, however, the bridge construction is now fully engineered, fully permitted, and shovel-ready, with project bid documents already having been reviewed by each community's legal counsel. Securing construction funding is the sole remaining step to bring this project to completion. More than $500,000 in state grant funds have already been expended on local, state, and federal permitting to get this project shovel-ready. Nearly $4 million of additional public funding has been appropriated and is available to support this project, including nearly $3 million in state grant funds awarded to both West Newbury and Newburyport, and more than $1 million in local funds approved by the town of West Newbury. In order to access this funding, it will be necessary to award a construction contract this calendar year, and the town and city are at the outset of a bidding process to allow us to meet this schedule. The IMA before the council tonight would authorize this project to go forward and would memorialize what has been the spirit of this project all along, which is a 50-50 split of net local costs. For more than 6 years, town and city staff have met halfway on this project in their level of effort in countless meetings, calls, site visits, and hearings. What remains is for the city's elected leadership to proceed in the same collaborative spirit, and we hope that you'll do so through endorsement of the Bridge IMA. We greatly appreciate your time and attention to this important matter and look forward to continuing work as partners on this and many other important matters affecting our region. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Next, I can't quite read the handwriting, but I think it's Rachel Deschamps. And if you could state your name and your address and 2 minutes on a related matter.
Rachel Deschamps, I own Radiant View, a couple doors over, and I'm here for a sign variance. I've had a sign for 4 years, and it's come to my attention that it's been annoying my neighbors, and so I've since purchased a smaller sign, and it has more than 5 feet of sidewalk space, and it's like not, it shouldn't be in anybody's way. So that's what I'm here for today.
Great, thank you. We'll take that up later. Next would be Liz Walsh.
Liz Walsh, 4 Virginia Lane. Thank you for the work that you've put into the library investigation thus far. I'm a former archive volunteer. For me, I just wanted to say tonight that there has been a silver lining. I met and started to work alongside the other volunteers who I had never known before, an amazing group of people who have given so much of their hours and expertise to their city. Together, we have worked to uncover the truth, spending a little over $1,000 of our own money to do so. I continue to be so grateful to you, the City Council, still the first and only people to take up this matter. You are another silver lining for me. I have learned what a huge job that you each carry, and I especially appreciate those of you who have reached out to me with care and kindness. Let us all move forward together as we search to uncover the truth in a fair and honest investigation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Jason LaCroix.
Jason LaCroix, 14 Hill Street. First of all, thank you for remembering Dave tonight. He was a fixture on Newburyport, and anybody remembers Atkinson Lumber, he was stationed down the end checking people out and stuff like that, but I'm probably dating myself. Anyway, sorry for the late application for Yankee Homecoming this year. It was a misunderstanding. I thought the electronic version was going to be the only version, but I went ahead and got this done That's why it's coming to you late. It'll be much earlier next year, and I'll be over there if you have any questions when it comes up. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Any further comment online? Seeing none, we'll close public comment, and we'll move to the mayor's comment. And there will be no mayor's comment because he's not able to be here tonight. So he gave his regards and said he had submitted it, and I believe you all got that email and hopefully had a chance to take a look at that. So we could then move to the consent agenda.
The consent agenda this evening is consisting of the approval of the minutes for July 8th, the Communications 565 Energy Analysis Report from EGA Architects for 59 Low Street to go to Community Service and Committee of the Whole, Communication 566, a letter from Mary Murphy regarding traffic signs on State Street to go to Public Works and Safety, Communication 567, a letter from the Newburyport Livable Streets on Speed Limits to Public Works and Safety, Communication 568, a memo for potential paths for redevelopment for the vacant Kmart site at Port Plaza to Planning and Development, Communication 569, the Middle Street, Plummer Street Bridge procurement timeline to go to Public Works and Safety, Application 223, a block party for Britcher Street between Hill and Cherry Street, September 7th from 3 to 9 p.m. to license and permits. There are no transfers. The appointments, there are a number of them. Appointment 502, Patricia Hassett, 19 Merrimack Street, Commission on Disabilities, 8/15/27 to Community Service. Appointment 503, Barbara Chambers, 237 Story Ave to the Commission on Disabilities, 8/15/27 to Community Service. Appointment 504, Andrew Thomas, 44 Boardman Street, Cultural Council, 8/15/27 Community Services. Appointment 505, Mary Jacobson, 16 Parker Ridge Way to the Cultural Council, 8/15/27 to Community Services. Appointment 506, Melissa Del Roque, 89 High Street to the Cultural Council, 8/15/27 to Community Services. Appointment 507, Tracy Fisher, 53 Purchase Street to the Tree Commission, 8/15/27 to Community Services. Appointment 508, Heather Rogers, 15 Strong Street, is a reappointment to the Planning Board, 8/15/27 to Planning and Development. The following are coming out of their committees: Budget and Finance, Order 555, Communication 557, and Order 585. General Government, Appointment 497 and Order 588. Licenses and Permits, Applications 218, 219, 220, and appointments 494 and 496. Planning and Development, 2 appointments, 499 and 500, and Public Works and Safety, Communication 560, 561, Order 584, and the Appendix B for 584. And that's the consent.
Councilor Preston?
Yeah, motion to remove appointments 502 through 507 from the consent agenda.
Okay. Councilor Khan?
Yes, and I wanted to just amend Communication 568 to also make that Committee of the Whole, the memo on the Kmart site.
Okay. Planning and Development Committee of the Whole. Okay. Communication 568. All right. Councilor
Can we also
Zede?
remove 567, Communication 567,
We removed.
and 569? Motion to approve as amended.
No, I have another
Oh,
one.
I'm sorry.
Could we remove from license and permits applications 218 and 219?
218 and 219.
They won't be coming out of committee tonight.
Okay, so
Motion to approve.
Second.
Kathleen, you have all that? All right, we'll try to catch it all in the regular agenda. So removals and amendments, and a motion was made to approve the consent. Could we add the mayor's comment as well?
Collectively, and receive and file the mayor's update.
Second.
So I was going to.
Okay. So Councilor Zede made the motion, seconded by Councilor Harmon. Okay, I can't see you over there. Okay, roll call.
Councilor McCauley?
Yes.
Councilor Preston?
Yes.
Councilor Shan?
Yes.
Counselor Wright?
Yes.
Counselor Zede?
Yes.
Counselor Donahue?
Yes.
Counselor Granis? Yes. Counselor Harmon?
Yes.
Counselor Khan?
Yes.
Counselor Lane? Yes. Counselor Cameron?
Yes. Okay, we'll move to the regular agenda.
So you have your first reading appointments?
Yes, the first reading appointments. We'll read them first and
So do you want to do them one at a time?
collectively, yeah, just read them collectively, and then Councilor Preston's going to do something.
All right, so first reading appointments collectively are appointment 502, 503, 504, 505, 506, 507, and that's it, right? Just the ones to communicate.
Councilor Preston.
Yes, thank you. So, per our council rules, actually none of these apply, and just to be clear, so these are 2 appointments to the Commission on Disabilities, 3 appointments to the Cultural Council, and 1 appointment to the Tree Commission. Per our council rules, none of these actually have to go to committee, so I would actually like to move to approve these on first reading.
Second.
Okay, so the motion was made to approve first reading. We do need 2 votes, so we'll have a second reading at the next meeting, just for those who are following along. And that was seconded by
Zede. Counselor Zede.
Zede, thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Donahue.
Thank you. Yeah, can I just get a little clarification as to when that happened? That we don't have to send those to committee?
Yes, Councilor
Yes, so
Preston.
per our council rules, only certain appointments actually have to come into committee. Planning board, zoning board of appeals, CPC, it is actually defined in our council rules what does and doesn't. Quite frankly, we have been taking under practice to take everything into committee, but frankly, it takes a great deal of time, both from committee members as well as members of the public. And frankly, I think these are volunteers that are coming forward. The mayor's office has vetted them, and I personally feel very comfortable with having these people appointed without having to bring them in for committee assignments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Okay, roll call on the collective first reading of appointments 502 through 507. Councilor McCauley?
Yes.
Councilor Preston?
Yes.
Councilor Shand?
Yes.
Councilor Wright?
Yes.
Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Granis? Yes. Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Lane?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron? Yes. Right.
Take us to communications, and we'll take up the first 2, and then we can get to the ones that were removed from the consent agenda. There's two, I think. So maybe start with the...
Okay, so the first one is the amended application 191 for the Chamber of Commerce, the car show with a rain date of August 15th and map changes.
Right?
So just a point of order, this is something that we did, because it was an amended item, we did cover it in our meeting, and so I was planning to make a motion to bring it out of committee as part of my committee reports with a recommendation.
Okay. Would we want to address it here, just to move it along, or take it up in committee?
We can. So, no, let's do it with the committee reports.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll deal with that then. Then application 222.
Is the Yankee Homecoming, July 27th through August 4th.
Motion to waive the rules and declare an emergency preamble around Yankee Homecoming because the date will be ahead of our next meeting.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Zede, seconded by Councilor McCauley. Discussion? That would be called a mega motion. Thank you.
Sure.
And hearing no discussion, roll call.
Roll call on application 222. Councilor McCauley?
Yes.
Councilor Preston?
Yes.
Councilor Shand?
Yes.
Councilor Wright?
Yes.
Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Granis?
Yes.
Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Lane?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes. And the communications that have been removed,
So that would be communication 567, a letter from Newburyport Livable Streets on
Motion to
speed
receive and
limits.
file.
Second.
okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, roll call.
Councilor McCauley?
Yes.
Councilor Preston?
Yes.
Councilor Shand?
Yes.
Counselor Wright?
Yes.
Counselor Zede?
Yes.
Counselor Donahue?
Yes.
Counselor Granis?
Yes.
Counselor Harmon?
Yes.
Counselor Khan?
Yes.
Counselor Lane? Counselor Cameron?
Yes. And then Communication 569 was removed.
Motion to receive and file?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Counselor Zede, seconded by Counselor Harmon to receive and file. Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Roll call on Communication 569, receive and file. Counselor McCauley?
Yes.
Counselor Preston?
Yes.
Counselor Shand?
Yes.
Counselor Wright?
Yes.
Counselor Zede?
Yes.
Counselor Donahue?
Yes.
Counselor Granis? Counselor Harmon?
Yes.
Counselor Khan?
Yes.
Counselor Lane? Counselor Cameron?
Yes. That would lead us to transfers, and there are none. Second reading appointments, there are none. Orders.
Orders. The first order is Order 589. It's licensed contractor J&Z Excavation LP.
Motion to refer 589 to Public Works and Safety, 590 to Community Services and Committee of the Whole, 591 to Budget and Finance, and 592 to Budget and Finance. And I can certainly
Okay, so
say the titles for the other ones.
collective motion on those four, so the clerk wants to repeat those, that would be great.
Sure. So that's the Order 589, licensed contractor J&Z Excavation LP to Public Works and Safety. Order 590, the license agreement between the city and the Pioneer League for Lower Atkinson Common and Pioneer Fields to Community Services and Committee of the Whole. Order 591, the grant acceptance for the local cybersecurity of $51,910 to Budget and Finance. And Order 592, the gift acceptance from David and Marianne Becker, $4,000 for general library purposes to Budget and Finance. And that was Counselor Zede, and the second was?
Harmon. Motion was made by Counselor Harmon, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none.
Okay, on the collective orders, Counselor McCauley?
Yes.
Counselor Preston?
Yes.
Counselor Shand?
Yes.
Counselor Wright?
Yes.
Counselor Zede?
Yes.
Counselor Donahue?
Yes.
Counselor Granis?
Yes.
Counselor Harmon?
Yes.
Counselor Khan?
Yes.
Counselor Lane?
Yes.
Counselor Cameron?
Yes. Ordinances none, so we would move to committee items. Budget
Motion
and
to
Finance.
approve Order 555, Consolidation of School Functions. Thank you. So Order 555 is the acceptance of a local option, MGL Chapter 71, Section 37. What this order would do is to accept that local option. What that local option does is allow for the consideration of consolidation of functions between the city and the school department. The local option does not, let me start here. This vote does not specifically create any consolidation. All it does is create a pathway for that consideration. If and when we want to undertake or consider an actual consolidation, that would need to be brought in as its own order. This order need only be passed by a simple majority of the City Council. A consolidation in the future would need to be passed both by the City Council, simple majority, by a majority of the school committee, simple majority there as well, and of course, in both cases, approved by the mayor. So that's kind of just setting the stage for you so you understand that this isn't specifically creating any consolidation. We did have a committee meeting on this on July 11th. At that meeting, we invited the school committee. We also invited the superintendent. The school committee members did end up hosting a meeting, and so they called roll and so forth. So we had the opportunity for a joint discussion. The mayor also attended. Essentially, the idea here is to at least have the opportunity to consider this. I think there are a couple functions that are kind of in mind for consideration for the future, specifically facilities and information technology. IT would be the two, but again, there's no specific plan before us at this point. The mayor did say that he envisions creating and forming some kind of an ad hoc, pulling a few folks from each body in the interest of trying to think about this and potentially come up with something that would be effectuated in the FY25 budget, both in the school budget and then bubbling up into the city budget there as well. To our understanding in the committee, Steve Bergholm, this is something that he worked on prior to his recent retirement, and so there has to be obviously a lot of conversation around how this would actually impact, personnel and operations and so forth, depending on the nature of any consolidation that is proposed. We did not have a lot of consideration or discussion because it is, again, just opening the conversation. I'm sure there would be a lot of conversation in the event of an actual proposed consolidation. A few members of the school committee did speak in regards to the impact on collective bargaining. We then got into a bit of a conversation around human resources, which already has a component in the schools and a component in the city, and where different employees may be seeking answers to their questions. Another school committee member said, you know, they didn't take any exception with this so long as it's sort of in the exploratory phase, which it is. So in the end, the committee did vote 2-0 to recommend approval, and that is the committee report on that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, roll call, Order 555.
On Order 555, motion to approve, Counselor McCauley?
Yes.
Counselor Preston?
Yes.
Counselor Shand?
Yes.
Counselor Wright?
Yes.
Counselor Zede?
Yes.
Counselor Donahue?
Yes.
Counselor Granis? Counselor Harmon?
Yes.
Counselor Khan?
Yes.
Counselor Lane?
Yes.
Counselor Cameron?
Yes.
Motion to receive and file communication 557. Second. This is the statement of interest from Whittier Tech, a topic I think we all have some familiarity with at this point. During the budget process, budget hearings this year, we had Superintendent Maureen Lynch join us, and we understood from that meeting that an SOI, a statement of interest, had been submitted to MSBA. We did not, I think, have enough time to get into the details during budget, so I asked the superintendent if she would kindly submit the SOI as a communication, as a way to open dialogue between the city and the city council in particular. And so she was kind enough to join us, along with Kara Cosmas, the business manager. We also extended invites to the 2 school committee members that sit on the Whittier School Committee on behalf of Newburyport, and we had school committee member Brett Murphy join us as well. So we had a decent conversation around this. We also have Councilor Harmon as a member of the committee who is sitting on the task force. I think that's the right title that you've heard about from the mayor during updates around potentially trying to discuss the agreement and things along those lines. So I'll do my best to summarize across the committee meeting, but certainly would defer to my colleague if there's something that's valuable to add, and certainly can speak from a first-hand position. So the SOI has been submitted to the MSBA. There are some similarities to the prior process in the sense that MSBA, again, as we're probably familiar with at this point, requires an alternatives analysis, which means looking at the existing building, the existing property, but also the potential for a new project. Obviously, in this case, and again, we've heard about this in the public discourse around a potential partnership and shared campus with Northern Essex Community College, and so that conversation is happening, and you know, that is something that the MSBA is expecting to hear back from the MSBA in December as to whether or not they will be awarded and get into the pipeline, so to say, for MSBA. Then we did, as I mentioned, get into that conversation about updates from the working group, the ad hoc task force that I mentioned, and there were a lot of discussions. Councilor Harmon let us know that they've sort of tried to split into 3 groups around finance, collaboration and communication, and then appointments as well, trying to arrive at some consensus around changes to the agreement, but have already flagged and understand that, for example, Haverhill's mayor has made it clear that there's not a tremendous interest around any changes to the agreement that would increase the burden on taxpayers in that city. So there is a discussion. We did frankly talk about whether those discussions were expected to be fruitful or not. I think that's up for debate, as there are, again, some tough, rock and hard places to work through, but they still intended to work through it. I think, the intent was to get to some point where at least a good bulk of the communities that are currently participating in the agreement could agree on something, and then perhaps the state could help break up any sort of logjam that may exist. So then we got into talking about, okay, what are some of our hopes around the SOI? In that committee, and then in ours, there was a discussion that hopefully this does have the opportunity to come in at a lower cost. We then talked about potential enrollment at the school. Folks will remember from January's discussion that the 1280 number or so, keeping it steady, was an area of conversation and debate, I would say. There are about 200 students on the wait list for Whittier across all of the communities, so that was discussed as well. And then we talked about trying to approach potentially the project from the other side in terms of asking communities what they may be willing to invest towards this project. But that's something that remains to continue to be discussed. So the ad hoc task force will continue to meet, and in the meantime, they'll do their best to basically keep the building operating, and I think we'll all see what happens in December if the MSBA accepts, and then from there, the typical timeline would take hold. So I think it was a good exercise to have an opportunity to communicate with them, and I have asked Superintendent Lynch that whenever there's something of this magnitude, the submission of an SOI, obviously we don't want to be in every single conversation along the way, but that there be a submission to the City Council. So I hope that this will continue the conversation. And again, I'll defer to Councilor Harmon if I missed anything of note. It was a 2-0 in committee to receive and file it.
Great, thank you for that thorough explanation. Any further comment? So the motion made by Councilor Zede, seconded by Councilor Harmon, was to receive and file. So let's have a roll call.
All right, Councilor McCauley?
Yes.
Councilor Preston?
Yes.
Councilor Shand?
Yes.
Councilor Wright?
Yes.
Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Granis? Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Lane?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes.
And lastly, on business, motion to approve Order 585, Grant Acceptance Safe Grant Program. This is a fairly small grant in the amount of $8,100 awarded by the state to the city of Newburyport. It is one of those types of grants where essentially all 351 communities get an amount. We didn't have a specific presentation on this, but it's not the first of these that we've seen. And the grant runs for about six months, and there'll be opportunities to provide safety education to school-aged kids, hence the name SAFE Act. It was 2-0 on committee to accept.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Roll call on Order 585 to approve. Councilor McCauley?
Yes.
Councilor Preston?
Yes.
Councilor Shand?
Yes.
Councilor Wright?
Yes.
Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Granis? Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Lane?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes.
That's it for business tonight, Mr. President. We will have our standing meeting on Thursday, starting at 6 p.m. I just want to remind everybody that there are a couple of committee of the whole items that I know are of interest. So the Curtis Memorial Fund will be top of mind on Thursday. We have extended invites to representatives of that trust, so we'll have a couple of the folks who are here presenting available to us. We will also have our city solicitor joining us as well to help answer questions. We will at least commence conversation on Order 563, which is the NRYS debt exclusion, and potentially use it to get an update from the administration regarding the status of that project. We have a couple of gifts. And then we also have two that I'm hoping, if it's of interest to you, these are the parking rates. We did talk about them in committee, but it is summertime, so we didn't have a lot of attendance, and I didn't want to bring it to the floor until anybody who's interested has an opportunity to speak on it, as it is committee of the whole. And finally, still waiting on the city solicitor, but we'll follow advice on responding to an open meeting law violation question, so we'll take that up on Thursday as well, consistent with the law. Thank you so much. That's it for budget.
Thank you. Thanks for those updates. Councilor Preston, Community Services.
Yeah, thank you. So we have nothing coming out tonight, but we do plan at our next meeting, which is August 5th, to both take up an old appointment that's been rattling around for a bit on our docket. But more importantly, we have two committee of the whole items which came in tonight. They would be the energy analysis report for 59 Low Street, as well as the agreement with the Pioneer League at Lower Atkinson. So again, both of those items are committee of the whole. For anyone who's interested in discussing those, August 5th.
Great, thank you. And for general government, I'd like to make a motion to approve appointment 497, Gary Gorski, to the Board of Registrars. Thank you. So we met as general government earlier this evening. Mr. Gorski appeared remotely and talked a bit about his interest in this position on the Board of Registrars. He has been a poll worker since COVID times, mostly in Wards 1P and Ward 1, has found it very interesting looking to continue his community service. And I imagine that the clerk, Jones, who's not here this week, had reached out to him, and seemed like he'd be a great addition to that board, and we approved it 3-0 in committee. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Roll call on appointment 497 to approve. Councilor McCauley?
Yes.
Councilor Preston?
Yes.
Councilor Shand?
Yes.
Councilor Wright?
Yes.
Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Granis? Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Lane?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes. Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve as amended Order 588. Second. Seconded by Councilor Granis. We have a marked up copy that, so we met as general government earlier this evening. There were several amendments that were adopted in committee. I think Mr. Chamberlain has the copies. Councilor Khan.
Thank you.
Graciously added the changes, so I'll let you get that into your hand, and then I will, and Councilor Shan, sorry, you'll need to follow along verbally. Okay, so I'll start, and then Councilor Khan can start. So, the genesis of this order obviously was the communication from a number of citizens. I want to say back in April. We had several general government committee meetings on it. I was talking to various people, reviewing documents, creating a timeline of sorts to try to get an understanding of the situation at the library in 2023 and continuing into 2024. In committee, it became clear that hiring a third-party investigator made more sense rather than me trying to play investigator, because it's complicated, so this order was submitted on July 8th to the council, referred to committee. We discussed it earlier this evening. Our city solicitor, Karis North, was present remotely for the discussion, and we made several amendments, and we did approve it 3-0 in committee. And I don't know if Councilor Khan, if you want to walk through the amendments, you had started several of them. Councilor McCauley also added a piece in there. But really what we're looking to do is get an approval from the council so we can set this in motion. I have talked to city solicitor about options to do this investigation. It would probably be, there are two that she's identified so far. And again, these are recommendations from her. But these are two people that both attorneys work for law firms, one in Boston, one is in Worcester, who have experience particularly around employment law and doing these sort of investigations. The idea would be to interview a number of people from the spectrum of city, mayor's office, HR, staff from the library, the head librarian, head librarians that have been involved, and volunteers as well, and and other interested parties. If the number of interviews is somewhere around 10 or 12, based on that time, plus the time to sort of absorb the information and synthesize it, and then to create findings and recommendations, the thinking is this could be a 36 to 40 hour endeavor. We did, and again, Councilor Khan can walk through this. We did put up to 40 hours of work, not to exceed $12,000. That's, again, was amended in committee and approved as an amendment in committee, just to have a number, because otherwise there would be shuttling back between me and the investigators. And so we also talked about making sure that the scope was thorough enough where an independent investigation would be able to find out what they needed to find out. So that's sort of what the amendments are about. Councilor Khan, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, if you don't mind. Yeah, thank you, Council President. So I think the key part we wanted to add in here that's really important is that we did have 3 general government committee meetings on this, and each one of them were, probably a little under an hour, but they were pretty much hearing from the public. And this is definitely, and I think I said this before, it's not like we want to invoke this aspect of the role that we do here. I take it I don't take it lightly. I feel like there are sometimes situations where we do need to now insert ourselves as representing the residents, the people who live in Newburyport, in getting some type of resolution. And for those of you who have not been able to attend those meetings, it was painful at times. It was really heartbreaking. We had people here, the room was full. And it was different people, some of them were the same people, but they were the volunteers of the Archival Center. I would say probably of a more senior age, so it felt really compelling. And the first meeting was May 28th, and they continued coming on June 8th as well as June 24th. And to come out of your home, to come from the comfort of your home, to come here and say your piece, I think there was a little bit of therapeutic kind of feeling to be able to speak publicly about something that's been paining them for so long. I think when you sit here in our seats and you hear about it, to really feel like their name was basically publicly because of something posted on the Newburyport Public Library, something posted there, there is evidence, people sent that basically called them out as bullies, as well as something in the newspaper. And nothing like that was really investigated to really call them that. And it was hurtful. And many of them said that their name is all they have. So I personally apologized to them and said, I'm sorry, and I thank you. Thank you, why? The amount of hours of work they put in at the Archival Center, and if you talk to anyone, and right now with Yankee Homecoming, If This House Could Talk is an amazing feature where every home has a poster board talking about its history. It's these folks that work there that people go to. They don't have to rummage through everything. You go and ask a volunteer, and they find out all that information for you. So they are, and I thank them all, those who did stay after the last meeting. I thank them again, and I do say I'm very sorry, and I respect the work that you guys all do. And I will be looking to you as Yankee Homecoming is coming, or putting our poster boards together. So it was really important, though, to kind of tighten up some of the language. One is we did have public meetings, 3 of them. And there is good information that because we're not close to this issue, I personally didn't know the specifics of what was going on. There were a lot of things that in public comments said that we all took notes that got more questions in our head. And more questions that we realized, wait a second, we need someone to kind of take this independently. And why do we want to do this? There was definitely a process breakdown, but a process breakdown, though, that could result in an improvement, in solving it, and making sure it doesn't happen again. And that's really why this is an effort worth pursuing. It's to make sure it doesn't happen again. There's a lot to learn here, but we were not in that position to hear enough from everyone else and make that determination. And so to us, this was important to me personally, and I think my colleagues on the General Government Committee, this was one area to do it. I want to thank the Ward 5 counselor. I was hesitant to put a number in here, but I did appreciate that at least it gives us something that's a little bit reasonable and bounded. But if anything comes forth more, there is something we added that the council president will bring that before us, the council, the scope and the final costs. But this gives us at least an appetite of where we can maybe feel comfortable with costs. So that was the other thing put in here, the amount of money capped at really the hour of work, as well as having the council president be the point of contact. Because I think it's really important to know whoever's we're hiring to work for us, who will be that point of contact. Is it Clerk Jones? Is it the General Government Committee? So that was important to have a point of contact, but also knowing that we will be updated. How will that happen? Not really sure, but we wanted to put in some level of touching, like kind of reporting to us as this is happening. So at the end of the day, we don't spend $12,000 and find out that we really didn't answer any questions. So there's some level of elements added here for that kind of protection, that communication. So that's all I had to add on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Further discussion, Councilor Harmon.
Thank you, Council President. I'm going to keep trying to bring the temperature down on this because I think full respect for the volunteers, the real pain that they felt. I want to try to separate that from what is our responsibility as a body to, which I agree with this. I appreciate the work that's gone into this language. There are a lot of people in pain in our community, and you could construe that as responsibility of the city, and I think we have to be careful about telling a story around addressing that pain. I just want to make sure that everybody comes into this knowing that we're pursuing an independent investigation. I heard phrases in the committee meeting earlier like a meaningful conclusion or not coming to a conclusion. And I think what this is a fact-finding mission. Those facts may not address pain. Those facts may not provide the answers or the salve that people are in search of. But I want to find the facts, and I want to share as many of those transparently, publicly as we can. But I think it's our responsibility also to choose our words carefully in terms of setting expectations, because they're, when you are in pain, and if we are telling people that we're going to address their pain with this exercise and this investigation, and if we can't accomplish that, then that feels like we're letting them down again. So I just want to say that I think I'm in full support of this. I think I'm hopeful that it will help bring about, any process breakdowns that, my fellow at-large counselor says definitely there are process breakdowns. Well, I think this is an opportunity to really get very specific and understand the facts. And then we can receive that information and decide what we can do with it and make recommendations back to the city. But I feel like we shouldn't lead residents down a path who have already been experiencing a difficult situation that we may not be able to dictate the outcome until we see what is in this report.
Thank you, Councilor Harmon. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. So the motion was made to approve as amended. And who was the second on that?
Second?
I think it was
Councilor Granis.
Oh, coming back to me. Thank you. Okay, roll call.
Councilor McCauley?
Yes.
Councilor Preston?
Yes.
Councilor Shan?
Yes.
Councilor Wright?
Yes.
Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Granis?
Yes.
Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
yes.
Councilor Lane?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes. Passes 11-0. Thank you. And that is it for general government. Moving on to licenses and permits.
Okay. Thank you, Council President. Trying to do these in order. So I'll start with a motion to approve application 191 as amended.
Second.
So this is the car show that we already voted on. The only substantive change is that they've asked to include the parking lot on Harris Street, the corner of Harris Street and State Street, as part of their staging area for the vehicles. They needed more space than they had initially thought, so they wanted to include that space as well as part of the car show. And also, they also amended to have a rain date for the following week. So those are the two amendments for that application.
Great, thank you. Thanks for the explanation. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call on application 191.
Councilor McCauley?
Yes.
Councilor Preston?
Yes.
Councilor Shan?
Yes.
Councilor Wright?
Yes.
Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Granis?
Yes.
Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Lane?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes.
Okay. Motion to approve application 208.
Second.
Thank you. So this is an application for a sign. This is an application that needs a variance because the sign is located more than 5 feet from the entrance of the business. The placement of the sign would be on the sidewalk, as is our purview. There was a lot of discussion. There was some public comment from some of the businesses that surround this particular sign, as well as one of the residents whose driveway is in proximation with this sign. The council, we didn't vote to bring this out initially because we asked the condo association if they would consider allowing the sign to be placed on condo property as a compromise between the resident and the other business owners in the condo association. Unfortunately, they didn't come to an agreement on allowing that, so that brought it back to us to make the decision on whether to allow the sign to be placed. The applicant has modified the sign. It'll be a much smaller sign. It'll fit within the requirements of the ordinance, so it'll be the size that's required. And the placement will be on the sidewalk. It will allow for pedestrian access around the sign, and it conforms with our ordinance at this point. So it was recommended out of committee to approve 3-0.
Any further discussion? Councilor Granis?
Thank you. It does appear that the sign is blocking the sidewalk to the point where it slopes down to the driveway, and it also looks like it is blocking sight lines from the driveway for the owners of the home to pull out. It seems problematic. It seems for pedestrians and for cars pulling out for safety reasons, it just doesn't, I feel like the sign needs to be moved slightly off the sidewalk, maybe flush to the fence and not blocking any of the sidewalk. It just doesn't seem safe.
Yes, so the pictures that are in here are of the old sign.
Okay.
And the orientation is perpendicular to the sidewalk. The orientation now is going to be parallel to the sidewalk, so the view corridor will only be the edge of the sign, so it'll be much easier for the resident to be able to pull out onto the street. Even then, there's still cars on either side. There's still a lot of obstacles between that person being able to leave their driveway, cross the public sidewalk, and then enter into the street.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, roll call on application 208.
Councilor McCauley?
Yes.
Councilor Preston?
Yes.
Councilor Shand?
Yes.
Councilor Wright?
Yes.
Councilor Zede? Yes. Councilor Donahue?
No.
Councilor Graunis? No. Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Lane?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes. Okay, passes 9-2. Councilor Wright?
Motion to approve application 220. This is the Newburyport Chocolate Tour.
Second.
So they came before our committee. This is a long-standing event that has occurred in the city. There's no substantive changes to the event. The representatives have appeared before us to indicate that they have everything in order. The paperwork was reviewed. Insurance is all in order. And so this was also approved from the committee to approve 3-0.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call on application 220.
Councilor McCauley?
Yes.
Councilor Preston?
Yes.
Councilor Shand?
Yes.
Councilor Wright?
Yes.
Councilor Zede? Yes. Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Granis? Yes. Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Lane?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes.
And then I'll make a motion to approve appointment 494 and 496. So I'm suggesting that we do these together. Both members are both being appointed to the Licensing Commission. Both gentlemen appeared in person at our last meeting. These are both reappointments. Each of them indicated their willingness to continue to serve on the board. We asked them if they had any suggestions on how we could make things easier for them. One of the things that was indicated by both gentlemen is that they could use a little more guidance with the short-term rental application process because it's new to them. And so we'd like to remind the administration that they've asked for a little more guidance around the application process. And then more specifically about what they'd have to do if there were any appeals or anything that came out of the zoning. So both appointments were approved 3-0.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion on the motion to collectively approve 494 and 496? Right, hearing none, roll call.
Councilor McCauley?
Yes.
Councilor Preston?
Yes.
Councilor Shand?
Yes.
Counselor Wright?
Yes.
Counselor Zede?
Yes.
Counselor Donahue?
Yes.
Counselor Granis?
Yes.
Counselor Harmon?
Yes.
Counselor Khan?
Yes.
Counselor Lane?
Yes.
Counselor Cameron?
Yes.
So just some housekeeping, application 218 and 219 will be coming out, will be managed in our next meeting, and then there's one additional item that's been added as of today.
Great, thank you. Counselor Shand, Planning and Development.
Thank you, Council President. Motion to approve appointment 499, Mike Bissett, reappointment to the CPA.
Second.
Okay, it's been seconded?
I'm assuming somebody seconded that.
Yes, it's been seconded.
Thank you. All right, so we had Mr. Bissett come to committee last Tuesday. Mr. Bissett's been on the CPA since the beginning of the CPA. He continues to enjoy it. I've been saying for my 7 years on council, the recommendations to the CPA are always thoughtful and thorough. The discussion in the committee was around whether the CPA was planning to go back to a hybrid, and they have had a few hybrid meetings as of late. So at the end, the committee voted 2-0 to recommend approval of reappointment of Mr. Bissett to the CPA.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, appointment 499, roll call.
Counselor McCauley?
Yes.
Counselor Preston?
Yes.
Counselor Shand?
Yes.
Counselor Wright?
Yes.
Counselor Zede?
Yes.
Counselor Donahue?
Yes.
Counselor Granis? Counselor Harmon?
Yes.
Counselor Khan?
Yes.
Counselor Lane?
Yes.
Counselor Cameron?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion to approve appointment 500, Joe Texera to the Newburyport Conservation Commission. Reappointment.
Second.
Has been seconded.
Thank you. Thank you. So we spoke with Mr. Texera last week. He spoke to his time on the Conservation Commission, how he has enjoyed it over time. I just appreciated the council's input on various zoning efforts to help the Conservation Commission. One of the questions was regarding whether they were going to be going into a hybrid situation sometime soon. At this point in time, they're still fully remote, but at this point, after the meeting, I heard from Mr. Texera that they need to make a quorum, and they do that mainly by having meetings remote. So with that, the committee voted 9-1. I was the approving counselor, my fellow counselor from Long Island was opposing it, to recommend approval to the full council tonight.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Yes. Yes, thank you, Council President. It's not often that I'll stand to vote against an appointment. I feel that it's way past overdue for this particular board to meet in person or at least hybrid. The zoning board does, the planning board does. It's, for me, it's very important that when people come before a board, that they have the opportunity to look somebody in the eye when a decision is being made. I feel that that online-only meetings allow people to distance themselves from the candidates, for the applicants, and I don't think that there's the appropriate amount of empathy and understanding when you deal with someone and you can hide behind a keyboard or on a Zoom call. So that's primarily my reason for not voting to reappoint the chair. I think the chair, like all of our committees, drives the decision as to whether these events are in person or hybrid, and I feel that this is a reflection of the chair in leading, continuing to meet in an online fashion.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Councilor Preston.
Thank you. Yeah, I will not oppose this particular appointment, but I do agree with my fellow councilor from Plum Island. All of the boards and commissions across the city are now meeting in person again. The pandemic is really largely the need for having Zoom-only meetings based on the pandemic is really passed. And if there are members of the Conservation Commission that aren't able to meet in person, then to me, they're not fulfilling their duties, and they should really consider whether or not they really want to be asked for a reappointment for this. So I do agree that they really should be, at the very least, meeting in hybrid. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. call on appointment 500.
Councilor McCauley?
Yes.
Councilor Preston?
Yes.
Councilor Shan?
Yes.
Councilor Wright?
No.
Councilor Z?
President?
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Granius?
Yes.
Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Lane?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes. So that's 3911. Approved. Councilor Shan, anything else to report?
We will be meeting on August 6th at 6:30. We did get a few items coming in tonight, committee of the whole regarding cleanup, so we should have a pretty good discussion regarding 40B at that time. And we have another appointment that came in, so we will take care of business on August 6th. Thank you. And I do want to say thank you to Councilor White for letting me file that Tuesday night while I was traveling to work. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. That will lead us to Public Works and Safety. Councilor McCauley.
Thank you, Council President. Motion to receive and file Communication 560.
Second.
This is a changes, it says changes, but it's a memo from Molly Ettenborough, our Sustainability Director, to outline the sustainability changes to the solid waste program. We just went through the process of updating an ordinance and approving our contract with our hauling capability. We've added some changes to that. Part and parcel of the compromise that went into that was that these changes would be part of a communication plan when they would roll out, which is late September for October 1st, educating the private roads and private condo associations, how they might be able to come on board, being able to set up with retailers, the overthrow bags, those types of things. All of those details were laid out in the communication plan. It started with a postcard mailer, sustainability newsletter that goes out, as well as social media and posting on the website, et cetera, along the way. There'll also be an insert in the water bills, so there really is no excuse for us not to be able to communicate this information to our residents. And again, the committee report was 3-0 to receive and file. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call on Communication 560 to receive and file.
Councilor McCauley?
Yes.
Councilor Preston?
Yes.
Councilor Shan?
Yes.
Councilor Wright?
Yes.
Councilor Z?
Yes.
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Granius?
Yes.
Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Lane?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes.
Motion to receive and file Communication 561, request to amend speed limits.
Second.
So in the committee report, the applicant had, or the communicator, the writer of the communication to us attended via Zoom. He had earlier delivered a petition with almost 60 petitioners on it asking us to consider this motion. In a nutshell, the ask was to change the speed limits on High, Merrimack, Hale, Graff, and Parker to 30 or 35 miles an hour pre-2017 when we took this up. There were two basic premises to the conversation and discussion we had. We tried to steer away from the safety issue because then it became more subjective as to what it was, and we tried to get to the actual meat of this. So traveling on these roads prior to 2017, there were pictures submitted that said that some of the roads were 30 miles an hour, some of the roads were 35 miles an hour. And the general premise was that in 2017, when we adopted, when the council at that time adopted Chapter 90, 17C, that these roads should have been grandfathered in, and therefore it was not imposed correctly upon the city's process. Doing some research on that, what we found is that we actually didn't have speed limits prior to 2017. There was no actual record on the book except for Low Street and Story Ave. They're codified in section 13, 287, and 288 in our Code of Ordinances. But the remainder of the streets now are covered under Chapter 90, 17C. They weren't done in 2017. There was a variety of oversights that happened, but working with the administration, we finally got them all approved, we got our signs approved, all of those things we were Mass DOT as of April of 2024, excuse me, 23, excuse me. So we now abide by this. It was in densely packed areas, but you know, a lot has happened in 2017 on some of these roads. For example, on High Street and Merrimack Street, we've had quite a bit of infill. We've had a pandemic where people not only stayed home, but also came out of their houses and started to realize that people were speeding, they're now biking. There's more and more pedestrians where there were before there were just single cars and entities along the way. Because we as a city and entity have completed out our work on Chapter 9017C, there really was no additional work to be done or recommended to be done from the committee back to this full council. We did suggest if the applicant wanted to proceed this further, he probably should be in touch with his ward councilor to see about them making a proposal to change any of those roads. I myself offered that I would not, because they included both Hale Street and High Street, two streets that I think need some attention in terms of traffic calming and things like that going forward. But overall, the committee voted 3-0 to receive and file the motion.
Thank you. Any discussion on that communication about speed limits? All right, roll call.
Councilor McCauley?
Yes.
Council President?
Yes.
Councilor Shan?
Yes.
Councilor Wright?
Yes.
Councilor Z? Yes. Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Granis?
Yes.
Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Lane?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes.
Okay, motion to approve, motion to approve Order 584 and collectively 584 Appendix B. Second. Thank you very much. So what we see here is that we have an intermunicipal agreement that it was proposed to us for the Plymouth Spring Bridge, and between the agreement between Newburyport and West Newbury. This bridge, we heard earlier in the documentation that's here, has been out since 2018. There's been a lot of discussion about how we potentially move forward. I will remind everyone, on June 11th, there was a meeting of the minds, administration of Newburyport, administration of West Newbury, council president, as well as Senator Tarr, Representative Shand, representatives from South Moulton's office and Senator Markey's office as well. And so the IMA is really a result of multiple conversations that have happened. The document itself has been reviewed by both city council, city solicitor, as well as the town solicitor from West Newbury along the way. The crux of this really comes down to whether we want to proceed with putting the bridge back in. We do have some obligations under MGL Chapter 84 to be able to do that. We share infrastructure, and we need to put that back. The other part of this is there's a sharing of the cost, and what was proposed was 50% share. Appendix A breaks down the individual cost, construction costs. I will note that there's a high contingency cost in here of 25%, which equates to almost $900,000. The total remaining cost was $4.8 million. When they subtract out the state grants that have been given out and awarded along the way, it's 2.7. That leaves roughly $2 million to be shared between the two communities along the way. 50% of the net local cost would be $1 million. Again, that is not a final number because we haven't got a bid. We haven't got to construction documentation that's come out. Appendix B is the construction documentation that's attached to it, but we haven't got in the bids actually from the vendor themselves. So this $2 million does have almost $1 million, $900,000 of exact of a contingency for construction contingency along the way, so that should at least make us feel better. So what happens if potentially we vote no on this, or what happens if we vote no? That was a discussion in our, first of all, under our state obligations, the state, in this case, Mass DOT could rule against us, the risk, and just build out the bridge and then bill us for 50% or whatever percentage they deemed appropriate for that. But let's not also forget that we would forfeit any of the small bridge grants that we had. We had $500,000 previously, we had $750,000 now. So the risk that we take is potentially it's $1 million plus the loss of the grants as well. So we could be looking at $2.2 to $2.5 million of additional fees just because along the way. After some discussion, the committee voted 3-0 to recommend to the full council approval of this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Last but certainly not least tonight, right? So I have to admit, I am really of two minds on this particular one. You know, $1 million is not an insignificant amount of money, and I can think of a lot of places to spend $1 million in Newburyport today. A rec center certainly comes to mind. Our own streets and sidewalks, which, you know, we just eternally never have enough money for. And what's really the struggle for me is I, at least, have had no feedback from anyone in Newburyport asking for this bridge to be built. In fact, the only piece of feedback that I've actually had is someone asking me to make sure that this remains pedestrian only. They actually asked that we put in a wooden bridge instead of the current bridge. That would cost money. I'm sure the state does not want to give us any grants for, right? But this just doesn't seem to be a great need from the Newburyport side, and I did actually listen to the committee meeting. I heard the Ward 6 councilor say that he's spoken to residents that live in the immediate area of the bridge, and none of them are really looking for this bridge to be rebuilt. So, you know, it's a bit of a struggle to understand why we would spend $1 million on a bridge that nobody in Newburyport really wants. Having said that, I am very much want to be good neighbors to West Newbury. And frankly, as everyone knows, I am always beating the drum about our future water and sewer infrastructure needs, and most particularly with the Indian Hill water line, we would need cooperation from West Newbury, right? So I don't want to be a bad neighbor here, but at the same token, because I do want this, you know, cooperation from West Newbury in the future, but at the same token, we are considering spending $1 million of Newburyport taxpayer money for something that, at least to this moment, I've not heard anybody in Newburyport say that they actually want. So it's a real struggle for me to decide which way to really go on this. So a couple questions, because frankly, as I'm certain that especially the people from West Newbury would say, this has been batting around for a very long time, but frankly, this is really the first discussion I've been a participant in around it, so I don't have a lot of information. I haven't been involved in the discussions, and I don't know where we are. So my question would be to maybe Council President, because I understand from the committee meeting that you've been involved, maybe to the committee chair. But so have we considered in any way trying to tie agreement with this IMA to some sort of, you know, in principle agreement around the Indian Hill work? I know that that's still, you know, conceptual at this point, but have we considered somehow, you know, gaining that leverage we'd be looking for? That would make me feel a lot better about saying yes to $1 million for this. And then the other side would be, you know, have we considered looking at something other than 50-50? Again, if I am a West Newbury resident or select board member, I would say why, you know, Newburyport should likely pay more than 50%. We have more residents than West Newbury, but at the same token, you know, we did get, I think, 3 different emails from West Newbury residents that are looking for this bridge to be built, but again, we have nobody in Newburyport asking for it. So if there is, you know, sort of a higher perceived value for it from West Newbury than there is from Newburyport, have we considered West Newbury taking up more of a percentage than 50-50? I yield.
Councilman McCollum?
Yeah, we did talk about that, these things. The linkage to Indian Hill, it's just, Indian Hill's still conceptual more than anything else, and we're inferring more than we are actually having any hard numbers to be able to link, to be able to have that discussion. So the answer is no on that one. In terms of the 50/50, I think that's to the general counsel of what they'd like to do, if there's an amendment to be able to do that. But, when we look at this, we did talk about this in the committee. Sure, it would be great, if somebody wanted to make a motion to go, less than 50/50, they're more than willing to do that. The council, or the will of the council, will be there. At the end of the day, it's not necessarily a lot of money. It could be, more money if construction costs came in along the way, but we, as a committee, we did not recommend that. We were okay with the 50/50, and we'd be open to anything that the council decides to do.
Yeah, and if you could all indulge me, just a couple of additional comments. The 50/50, this would be a partnership, and 50/50 obviously is 50/50. If West Newbury and Angus, can correct me if I'm wrong, if West Newbury is kind of leading on the procurement and financial management side, and Newburyport's leading on the construction management side, that furthers the partnership. I think if it was in a different, and again, as Councilor McCauley said, anybody can propose a different kind of a split. But to me, we had asked our city solicitor about our obligation around infrastructure, and it's shared infrastructure, and yeah, there is an obligation, that if we didn't take care of our stuff, and a shared bridge is part of our stuff, then that responsibility would evolve or devolve to the state, and the state may be, calling into question why we're not taking care of our infrastructure. And I think the Ward 6 councilor mentioned the state not taking care of their infrastructure, so there's an argument there. Another way to go could be just putting a finite dollar amount from, this is what Newburyport's going to kick in. That could be a way to go. Again, I think it's fine to do a 50/50 and maintain that partnership. I will also say, one of my first questions in the several meetings I was a part of was, why can't we just do nothing? The answer is it's going to continue to erode and devolve, and it's going to need to be addressed at some point. Why couldn't we just, probably seems cheaper to make it pedestrian and biker route, and it's really going to be about the same amount of money, and that was confirmed on our side by John Eric and Wayne Amaral. So, it's getting it as a vehicular bridge seems the way to go. And again, the state money that's hanging out there, and the ARPA money that West Newbury would use a part of their ARPA money, and that needs to be under contract by the end of this calendar year. There's money out there that if we don't move forward, we're going to lose that money, and we're still going to be back to where we're at. It has been permitted, as well as the IMA and other documents reviewed by both town and city solicitors. So I feel like it's been quite vetted. The meetings I was a part of were very heavily attended by Newburyport, the mayor, chief of staff, Andrew Levine, and Wayne and John Eric. So that's my thoughts on that. Councilor Lane?
Go ahead. You were there. I saw you.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Council President. So I had to do a little digging on the history of this. So yes, because we were some of us were on the council when we got the email from Mayor Holliday that they had to close Plummer Springs Bridge back in 2018. Since then, from what my recollection is, that we had some ARPA money that was earmarked potentially, but we were waiting for this intermunicipal agreement, the IMA, which took a while to come together. So I feel like we knew this was coming, but now as I'm looking at the details, and my apologies, I was not able to attend the committee meeting, so my apologies. So I do have just a few questions before I kind of share where I am with this. The first part is related to maintenance, just to get clarity. Actually, before that, the term. So this type of agreement, like I know the animal control officer, we sometimes see the IMA for that. In terms of this agreement, is the term for it I never say that right. Thank you. that? Or do we have some time frame when the construction is done? Does anyone know that? Or are these really done like this, and then whenever we need to change it, we bring it forth? Does anyone know that? The terms of this?
This is only for the construction piece only.
So
So
then-
we'll start when we sign it, and we'll terminate.
Okay.
And the shared costs are only for the construction piece going forward.
Because then that brings my next question, where it says, one of the, on the maintenance, is that there's a mutual agreement of both communities on maintenance. Can someone answer how that's normally handled? Is that also something our communities do? Because clearly we didn't do a lot when something happened, but I wasn't sure about that. So is that something that's answerable? I'm looking to the Ward 5 counselor.
I have no answer to that. It wasn't part of our discussion.
Okay. Can we recognize our
And
neighbors?
Angus, we'd be happy to recognize you if you want to comment on this or other things. Just speak up closer to the microphone. No, if you should stand at the, there should be a piece of tape down there. Yep, it's right into the microphone, actually.
Angus Jennings, West Newbury Town Manager. With all due respect, that's a little bit of a loaded question because the select board voted to close the bridge at the same time the city did about a week after I was hired in 2018. So I can tell you there were discussions between Public Works and both communities as to how did it get to this point. But it was not, it doesn't seem that there was proper maintenance because that's part of what led to the failure. So I think, it was rebuilt, that obviously can't happen again. It's a stone arch bridge, it's a very different thing than what was built under the approved plans. But things like paving, I will say that early in the project scoping, we did include, in coordination with Mayor Holliday, a survey to pin down exactly where the center line was. And the surveyor said it was the center line of the bridge, so that really kind of led to the 50-50. But yeah, for things like repaving and things, that is something that's going to need to be dealt with. Hopefully not for 10 years, but
Longer than that.
There were failings, I think it's fair to say, to let it get to the point that it got to in 2018. A lot of us weren't here then, so.
Got it. And okay, thank you. That's very helpful. So we recognize this, and let me just speak for my I'll let the Ward 6 counselor speak as well, since this is their area as well. But from my perspective, I believe it needs to be done. I will say that. I know we talked there could be recreational. I know kids who go fishing over there and their families, and it is a lovely kind of part of nature, and it's very, people enjoy, biking and everything there, the cars, the traffic. But granted, it's not like for people who live in different parts of the city may not access it, but there's so many things that we fund here in the city that not everyone accesses. So for me, this was something that was on our radar to do, and given the list of grant money that's been available, and hearing about what the costs could be, and I think the efforts around grants, I hope, continue to be pursued, even more on Newburyport side. I know we pursued one, the Small Bridges grant, and I'm curious if there's going to be additional ones we can look for. But at the end of the day, I will support this agreement. The maintenance aspect is something I think we need to be clear on, and it would be nice to know how would we fund maintenance, like we have our enterprise funds. If this is over our water source or one of the artichoke, maybe that might be a source, but things like that needs to be thought of from the administration. But I, in general, will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lane?
I was actually, I was there Saturday with my son fishing, so I totally get it. It's dilapidated. I spent a lot of time as a kid fishing there. My big problem with this, again, as Councilor Preston mentioned, I haven't had anybody in the area say to me, what's up with the bridge? And a lot of people just want to keep it as pedestrian. My question on this is, a truck's going to be allowed on this bridge, because that's what happened, in my opinion, to this bridge over time. You allowed oversized trucks to go through, and that's what destroyed it. It's in rough shape, I will tell you that. Concrete's curling out, and it's bad. That's my one question, and my other point is I'm only going to go to $1 million on this. There's more money around town that needs to be spent. I want to cap this at $1 million, so if I have to motion to amend this to make it only $1 million. If it exceeds any of that, West Newbury can kick in the other portion of it to finish it. But that's, I guess, I'm making a motion to cap it at the $1 million mark.
I'll second that.
So where in the, I'm just looking at the IMA, where in there would that be?
I believe it's 2, cost sharing, estimated project cost.
Yeah, that seems like the most likely. Oh, correct. So page 2, cost sharing, estimated project cost.
I would like the answer, though, about the size of the trucks that are going to be allowed to go first before going forward with that motion.
Okay. Any comments on the truck, Councilor McCauley?
Yeah, so this is part of the cost that MassDOT has imposed on us. Before it was a bridge, you know, that everyone said, oh, it's big enough, but now it needs to conform to Mass Bridge standards, and simultaneously to this, we're conducting via MVPC whether trucks should actually be in that area or not on Turkey Hill, as well as on Plummer and Middle Street going forward. That's kind of the study that's ongoing as we speak right now. So the design is accordingly should be able to handle trucks of a certain size. I don't know if they're full tractor trailer trucks. Part of that was we were directing trucks not on Turkey Hill, and they were going down Plummer Spring Road to begin with, which started the exacerbation of the deterioration of the bridge itself. So, so to answer your question, trucks of a certain size should be able to pass over that, provided they're, you know, they're allowed in that area going forward.
Full tractor trailer trucks? Okay, so if I can.
Yes.
I'm not going to support this if tractor trailer trucks are allowed. Local traffic would be fine. That's going to deteriorate the bridge even faster. It's going to bring about maintenance again. I just don't see, I see this as a, and I don't want to be a bad neighbor to you folks, I see it as a money pit, and something that we could spend the money in other places in the town. Youth Center, for example, Longfellow Drive is going to need work. There's areas all around town that I can see this money being spent better. I'd cap it at $1 million, but if you're telling me that there's going to be tractor trailer trucks going through, number one, it's not safe if people want to enjoy it, and that's kind of the auspice that we're under here is the enjoyment and nature and being out there. That's not safe for people. I can't even imagine the size, just the size of the bridge, standing there with my son and having a 18-wheeler come whizzing by at whatever, 35, 40 miles an hour, because they will. So I won't support this. With that being said, $1 million cap is great, but if it's tractor trailers, I'm out.
Okay, Councilor McCauley?
Yeah, maybe I didn't say it correctly, or I didn't express what I wanted to say. The design standards of the bridge are of Mass DOT bridge requirements, which would handle any size car, truck, et cetera, along the way. That's not to say that we're encouraging tractor trailers to be in that area. As a matter of fact, as you know, we're trying to restrict tractor trailers from that area altogether, but that's a separate issue from the, and a separate purview of MassDOT than the bridge itself. So, not trying to change your mind, I just want to let you know that we're trying to do two things at once, and they're related, but they're not related in terms of this vote going forward. In terms of the $1 million right now versus the 50-50, staying at $1 million, which is, you know, the amendment that's in front of us today, right now, is that it saves $6,000, and then we'd have to understand what the contingencies are built in there as well. There's $900,000 of contingencies. If we say we're in for $1 million, and let's say $700,000 of contingencies aren't used, then what we're saying is that we're on for $1 million. We're going to pay for $1 million, and we don't share any of the savings that come back from that potentially along the way. So I understand capping us maybe different language might work, but I'd rather suggest we stay with a 50-50 type of split, being able to also take 50% of the potential savings of the contingency that's in there as well. And if we can move expeditiously, we may actually have multiple bidders as opposed to just one or two that we've had in some of our other public projects. Thank you.
Councilor Harmon?
Thank you. I think I will just get on board with everyone else having a little bit of heartburn over this as an expense that I'd love to avoid. But I think a couple things that forgive me, Chair, if you've already covered this, but I believe in the discussion we talked about traffic displacement. So we're seeing some traffic patterns around Turkey Hill, for example, and other areas that maybe this would alleviate a little bit of that. The other element that I haven't heard discussed that I just want to put in our collective ears is the demand may be higher for West Newbury. The road leads to Newburyport, where they would potentially go shopping or go to a restaurant. And so making that easier has some benefit to us. I will also, just while I'm up, say I appreciate the Ward 6 councillor. I would support a cap if we could find the proper language. Perhaps we, to the Public Works and Safety Chair's point, perhaps we leave the language at 50-50 with not to exceed, a certain amount. And if we get to that, we can come back for additional discussion on what that means to us from a ROI standpoint. But I would support that. I think that feels responsible. And I would generally, I think I could get on board with this. Although I'd rather spend $1 million elsewhere.
Further discussion? Councilor Donahue? Councilor Khan?
Thank you, Chair. Or Council President, sorry, it's not committee. Yeah, so I just wanted to chime in my 2 cents on this. As I stated in the committee meeting, I do think this is definitely the right thing to do as a community neighboring another community that most definitely depends on Newburyport a lot, right? So West Newbury is a much smaller community than a lot of us realize, even though it might be larger in size. I don't really know, but a lot of woods. But yeah, to the Ward 4 councilor's point, they're coming here, and they're coming here via that bridge. So while I think everyone here in Newburyport in this room can think of probably 10 things we'd like to spend $1 million on besides a bridge most of us won't use, but to the point of processes and an appropriate, like, I don't want to say being good neighbors, but yeah, being good neighbors. I mean, it's cliche, but when the time comes, we want them to be good neighbors to us. We don't want to get into a situation where, we're putting ourselves against each other because of $1 million bridge that, with all of the processes in place, with the grants, with the other funds, with this not just being on our shoulders, like, I don't think it's too much of a stretch, even though I do understand the heartburn it does create because, of course, there's other things. But this is going to be one of those small infrastructure things that if we ignore it or don't do anything, it's not going to go away, and it's only going to continue to go up in cost, and we're going to lose a lot of that grant money. So it just seems like really kind of a no-brainer, even if it's not, in a majority to our benefit. It's just the right thing to do. So I'll yield there.
Point of order, Council President.
Yeah.
Could we just address our discussion to the motion that's on the floor, which is the capping?
The cap of $1 million.
And dispose of that one way or the other?
That sounds, that's the right way to go. Yeah, all right, so comment on the motion on the floor?
Yeah.
Was made and seconded. Councilor Lane?
I'm going to amend my motion.
Okay.
To that language that Ward 5 suggested to do it at 50-50 with a cap. Will be 50-50 with a cap of $1,006,149. So amount not to exceed $1,006,149.
Okay, so 50-50 split with the amount not to exceed $1,006,149. $6,149. Okay, is there a second?
I'll offer my second on that.
Okay, discussion on...
Still not a fan of the trucks going up.
Sorry.
I'm still not a fan of the trucks. I would love to see some sort of remedy. I know that you have to have the DOT surveys done for, whether you can do no trucks allowed. That's being done now. So we don't have any inclination as to which way that's going to go. I'm sure it's going to say there's no real...
McCauley?
Yeah, so we had one done 3 years ago. We had a study done. And what we found is that Turkey Hill and Hale Street shouldn't have trucks on them. The problem is we didn't have enough volume. It came on during COVID to be able to do that. And so MassDOT, in their opinion, said, you don't have enough trucks to actually push it off, right? So they rejected our application at the time. So we're going through the process again of doing the study and filing a new application with the 2-time volume that's gone on post-COVID with more and more trucks, especially with GPS using it. And we think, no guarantee, we think we have a better opportunity to put some restrictions on size of trucks that can use that entire type of area. Again, we're maybe 6 weeks into a 3-month process of doing an evaluation of it, and that's really where we are today. So that is what's going forward in terms of restrictions.
Okay. I'll move forward with the amendment then that I proposed.
Okay, so the amendment was made and seconded, so 50-50 split with an amount not to exceed $1,006,149.
In
Bunch of hands
section
were
2.
up.
After the vote, so we're
Okay.
off this one.
Any further comment on the amendment? Councilor Donahue?
Thank you. Just for a point of clarity, so if we have a cap, am I clear to understand, Chair of the Public Works and Safety Committee, that we would lose out on a contingency should it be returned?
Yeah, I think the new language prevents that because we're simply, I also want to mention that any increase in costs would have to be approved by this body as well as the Board of Selectmen in Newbury, West Newbury as well. So there isn't a guarantee, but regardless of whether this vote passed or not, I think we've sent a message to our neighboring community that that's our appetite, which is where it is right now, regardless of the 50-50. So I don't think we'd lose out on any contingency savings if we use the not to exceed language that's in there versus saying we'll pay $1 million and no more. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just to clean this up.
Yep.
In section 2, where it says, "To that end, Newburyport and West Newbury shall obtain the authorization of the other party prior to incurring such costs." Is that where we want to put the section that says, we'll actually almost strike that section because that's dealing with additional costs. So in some way, shape, or form, put into this the cap of our obligation is that $1 million.
Here's my suggestion. So we're in that first paragraph, cost sharing estimated project costs. So in that first paragraph where it says with each divided equally between Newburyport and West Newbury, with each municipality responsible for 50% of such costs, I think there you could add
to exceed.
and with Newburyport's amount not to exceed $1,006,149. I'm getting a couple of head nods. I think that would be the place
And
for the amendment.
Strike the sentence afterward. To that end, Newburyport and West Newbury shall obtain the authorization.
No, that's still valid.
I think that's important.
Leave that, okay.
Yeah.
You leave that in because
Okay.
that's the mechanism for asking for more money.
And I'll make a note of that. And yeah.
Did the clerk get that? Okay.
I've got the location and I've got the language, so further discussion on the amendment? Okay. Roll call on the amendment?
Councilor McCauley?
Yes.
Councilor Preston?
Yes.
Councilor Shand?
Yes.
Councilor Wright?
Yes.
Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Granis?
Yes.
Councilor Harmon?
Yes.
Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Lane?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes. Okay. So amendment made. Councillor Khan?
Yeah, I just want to add one, just in support of the bridge, the restriction of large trucks. I completely agree with that. I would just ask, as we are accepting the small bridge grants, to make sure there's nothing that prohibits us from doing that. So if we could make sure, if we were to change that, at some point, we're not held to it because of that grant acceptance. Thank you.
Okay. We can look into that. Councillor Z?
Just a couple of things. One is, I just wanted to ask a question about language in section 1. It says, the term of the agreement shall continue until the financial obligation set forth in section 6. I think that section 6 should be section 2. It may be a Scrivener's error, but section 6 has to do with liabilities. So I think that might just be the numbering got off.
Yep.
And then the term is in brackets, meaning I think it was intended to be filled in at some point. So in other words, I think the way I read this section is that if for some reason the bridge doesn't come to fruition in some period of time, that the agreement essentially expires. Is there a specific timeline and vision for that? 3 years, 5 years, 1 year? Do we know?
I don't know. Mr. Jennings?
The mayor's office had expressed comfort with 5 years, and that would be plenty, frankly, if the project doesn't get built in the next 3 years. It's really not going to happen. So 5 would be comfortable.
Okay. So we can
No, I
insert.
suggest that be at least inserted so that the
Yeah,
document is
okay.
complete. And then, unless I'm misreading it, section 6 should change to section 2. I believe that's the intent anyway, since it's referring to financial obligations, which really are section 2. So I'll move to that effect to those 2 changes. Second.
Discussion on that amendment? Okay, so made by Councillor Zede, seconded by Councillor Harmon. And so that would be to correct the double check section 6, if that should be section 2. And the term would be 5 years in that same paragraph. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the amendment, roll call.
Councillor McCauley?
Yes.
Councillor Preston? Yes. Councillor Shan?
Yes.
Councillor Wright?
Yes.
Councillor Zede?
Yes.
Councillor Donahue?
Yes.
Councillor Granis?
Yes.
Councillor Harmon?
Yes.
Yes.
Councillor Khan?
Yes.
Councillor Lane?
Yes.
Councillor Cameron?
Yes. Councillor Zede?
So just to continue, I wanted to just fix those first, but a couple of things. One is internally, been a lot of discussion in the last month or so, of course, over the capital improvement plan. And I just don't feel proud of this process, to be honest. I mean, we're sort of artificially capping it at some number that we arrived at. Another at-large councilor mentioned, having been on the council when the bridge closed, I too was here and I remember that. But no one here tonight can say what $1,006,125 will do to other projects in the city directly. So I'm very mixed on it, and I think the beginning of the debate was an at-large councilor saying, a lot of heartburn on all sides. I can argue for it in the sense that we have an obligation, it's infrastructure that shouldn't be let go. On the no side, we're sort of just picking numbers. Actually, when this really got going in 2019, 2020, my recollection, which is my memory only, was, this project was slated to be $1 million or $2 million total, let alone the concept of now the state's giving us $2, we're going to kick in $2 collectively. So, and how many years prior to the bridge failing was it sort of, you could see the bridge was going to come to a close, either it was going to fail catastrophically like it did, or it simply was going to age out by its life. So just in our last budget meeting, we had another conversation about foresight and seeing what's coming down the road. And I mean, this is another great example where we're just ad hocing everything. Here we are, we've got we've got a bridge, the project's shovel ready, so now we've got to do it. The last thing I want to say is just that in the agreement itself, it does say that the amounts are subject to appropriation. So in the end, there's going to be a bond order or something that's going to flow through the council, or ARPA is now done, so it's not going to come from there. So free cash, this would be a pretty big appropriation from free cash. $1 million is not typical or customary for us. And really that leaves your bond option. And I don't think we can hold out a lot of hope for more grants. In fact, you would argue they've probably already been pretty generous with the grants that have been received to date. So I'm mixed too, but I'm just trying to take a higher level conversation about the process that we got to get here.
Just one comment on the grant opportunities. In Angus, one of the DOT people said at, I think, the meeting with Senator Tarr, that you can, each community can reapply to, I think it's a small bridge. I forget what the amounts are, but there is a possibility of getting some additional funds for this, which would defray the cost. Is that
Possible. They also said the state felt they kind of done
their part.
they put in their share, yeah.
Certainly apply.
Yeah.
But they did say there's potential for more funds?
Legally, you can apply each year on a small bridge
500K.
grant. So Newburyport has now received 2 small bridge grants in different years, I think 2018 and then again this year. And West Newbury has received 1. But we could apply again.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Councilor Granis?
Thank you. I do agree with my colleagues. Spending $1 million for this, it's tough. It's tough to digest that. There are so many projects in town that we really could spend it on. Karis North did explain to us that we do have an obligation to keep public ways in good repair. By not doing this, we're not off the hook. We're still paying one way or the other. We're going to be losing out on the grants that we were awarded in 2018 of $293,000+, as well as a $750,000 grant that was awarded in late 2023. I don't know. It's a tough issue. Saying no will only cost us more. So I also remember this does connect West Newbury to Newburyport and Anna Jake's Hospital, so we do have to think in terms of that as well. So I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. I too reluctantly will support this expenditure, very reluctantly. The reasons for my reluctance is if we don't spend the money now, we may have to spend a lot more if the state does come in and do the project without us and leave us with a bill. So that concerns me. I'm reluctant because I don't feel like this is in the top 10 of the priorities that we have in the city that we've identified ourselves. So I'm reluctant in that regard as well. I'd also like to remind my fellow councillors and the administration that this bridge is probably the furthest part of Ward 1, furthest part away from Ward 1. And Ward 1 and Plum Island in particular continues to be underinvested by this city. And we continue to provide a surplus of tax revenue to the taxes, to the city for revenue. And there has not been a speck of tarmac, a sidewalk, or any infrastructure improvements made to Plum Island. Again, reluctantly, I'll support this.
Okay. Councilor Lane.
I'm also going to support it in the end here with the cap, and I just want to tell you that we too have been on an island for years, and now we've got Phillips Drive and some of these other things. This feels like getting veneers when you have like a need of a root canal. So I get your pain. Like I said, I'm going to support it. I want to be kind to you folks over there. It's the best we can do. Don't please report back to the town. I was at the first meeting in 2019, and I think I was the only person from Newburyport there. It was when I was running for office, and didn't really want to raise my hand and say who I was at all. So I do want to be a good neighbor to you, and I want this to go through and be smooth. It's, as you can see, it's painful for us, but hopefully you'll extend the same courtesy to us when we do go for the water lines, and we can work together harmoniously.
Thank you, Councilor Lane. Further comments? Seeing none, I think we can have a roll call on the motion to approve as amended.
Councilor McCauley?
Yes.
Councilor Preston?
Yes.
Councilor Shan?
Yes.
Councilor Wright?
Yes.
Counselor Zede?
Yes.
Counselor Donahue?
Yes.
Counselor Graunis?
Yes.
Counselor Harmon?
Yes.
Counselor Khan?
Yes.
Counselor Lane?
Yes.
Counselor Cameron?
Yes.
Nothing further. Council President, we do have a meeting, our regular scheduled meeting on August 5th. We'll have a full agenda of items to take up going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Good of the order. Counselor Lane?
I just want to let you all know that if you haven't seen, we're doing the dedication for Pete's Corner on the 29th. I want to thank Mary Ann Clancy and the DPS for getting that to the finish line with the plinth, and which is my new favorite term, by the way. That's called the thermal plinth. It's not a granite post. So it's going to be a good time. It's Yankee homecoming. Pete would love it, and he would get the biggest kick out of, just I think back to where that actual plinth is, and I have a great picture of him leaning into my car when I was young and just like, what's going on? And he would be beyond flattered with that, so I hope to see you all there.
Thank you. I have a couple of...
1 o'clock, sorry.
All right, 1 o'clock on the 29th. Thank
29th.
you. I have a couple of things. Just a friendly reminder, as opposed to an unfriendly reminder. Yankee homecoming, we're all invited to Old Fashioned Sunday. Sometimes we have a great council turnout there, sometimes we don't, but that's next Sunday, which would be the 28th at 11:30 on the Mall. It's under a tent, which is always good, and you get to sit with, for you newer counselors, you'll get to sit with any past chairs of Yankee homecoming. Many of our most esteemed citizens have done that honor and have chaired it, it's a lot of fun, and it's a nice event to be a part of. The other good of the order, it's been many years since I've heard the word raccoon here in council chambers, but this is a good news story. Those of you who were looking at Facebook this morning, some citizens noticed a raccoon, which turned out to be a baby raccoon, got its head stuck in a sewer grate, and there were people asking what should be done, and who should we call, and the people giving websites for like animal rehabbers and whatever. I said, call the police non-emergency, they'll connect to animal control and DPS. I thought of putting Sharif Zeed's cell number in there because it was on water in Marlboro, I did that, and I wasn't going to go running over there because I'm sure there were 20 people there, but and I wouldn't have been any help. But it turns out our DPS, animal control, I think the fire department, somebody slathered the raccoon's head with oil or Dawn dishwashing, and we're able to get it out. There are some just astounding pictures on Facebook, this poor little thing. But anyways, and just again, I mean, you all know this is, whether you're at-large or ward councilors, our city responds, and people get to be, in a position where they can make good things happen. So a good thing happened today. So that's my last good of the order. So I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all those roll call.
Counselor McCauley?
Yes.
Counselor Preston?
Yes.
Counselor Shan?
Yes.
Counselor Wright?
Yes.
Counselor Zede? Yes. Counselor Donahue?
Yes.
Counselor Graunis?
Yes.
Counselor Harmon?
Yes.
Counselor Khan?
Yes.
Counselor Lane? Counselor Cameron?
Yes, meeting adjourned. Thank you. Counselor Shan, good luck getting back.